I need to look it up, but I feel like he is the same guy who voices, what the fuck is his name? Fox from Persona 5, who is like a
Yusuke?
Yeah.
No, that's Tomokazu Sugita, I believe, who voices Yusuke.
Yeah. Okay.
In Persona 5, and this is Daisuke Namikawa. So
this is Daisuke Namikawa? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, this is Daisuke Namikawa. So.
That's Waver.
This
what
is
the fuck?
Yeah. I was waiting for the moment that came to your just came to you. I'm glad it was caught here live on the podcast.
Her brain broke.
Oh my actual god! Oh my god! I'm gonna go back and clip the scene where he says "You're my girlfriend," and I'm just gonna make it my ringtone and my wake up alarm. Oh my actual god! I think my fiance just yelled at me to stop yelling, so I will stop yelling. All right, yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Box, the AniChatBox, where we good friends snuggle up in a teeny tiny space to talk about all things what else? Anime, of course. My name is Cami, and I am your host for episode 152. Not alone. I do have joining me tonight one of my notorious partners in crime, and that is Gregory von Maximus III, twice removed.
Hi, how's it going, Internet?
They're responding. They are saying, kind of shitty, but we're hanging in there.
Yeah.
And we'd like to tell you, us too. We're all there with you, folks.
One step at a time.
Yeah, one step at a time. We're here to try and take your mind off things, make you smile tonight. And joining us in that effort is the man of the hour. I've recorded so much with this gentleman in the span of a week, probably more than like ever before. That is one Zach, who is tied up in a corner because we're not letting him leave the box. How are you, Zach?
That's frightening imagery, and I think we're getting a little sick and tired of each other. I imagine with all these recordings recently.
You know what I just realized?
Mm-hmm.
Is that y'all made that lore in Anime Movie Night with Cassie that like I'm an assassin or whatever.
Oh no!
So now I just said I tied you up. Third. My icon is currently an assassin. So I'm just saying the stars aligned.
Oh no, Cami's finally hit her true potential, her final form.
This is my final form. Y'all set me up there. Let's watch a show where she's going to fall in love with the samurai assassin. Now it's all set and done. Oh, damn. Okay. All right. Anyway, to wrangle us back in, because everybody who's not a regular listener is probably like, what the hell is going on? Today, we are going to review one of my host choices, that is Lupin the Third, the Woman Called Fujiko Mine, or Lupin the Third, Mine Fujiko to Iu Onna. And we'll just probably call it Fujiko Mine for short, because that's going to be a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
And Fujiko Mine was animated by Studio TMS Entertainment. Other shows you may know them for include Dr. Stone and Fruits Basket 2019.
Dr. Stone?
Aired Dr. Stone!
Dr. Stone?
Yeah.
And pretty much every Lupin adaptation for like,
ever.
I don't know, past few decades, I feel.
Have they really? Okay, that's good for me to know.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually really funny, just considering how stylistically different so many different Lupin productions have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of dig it. I dig it. And it aired in spring of the 2012 season. And I'll hit you up with a quick little synopsis. Many people are falling prey to a suspicious new religion. Lupin the Third infiltrates this group, hoping to steal the treasure that their leader keeps hidden. There he lays eyes on the beautiful, bewitching woman who has the leader enthralled. This is the story of how fashionable female thief Fujiko Mine first met Lupin the Third, the greatest thief of his generation. For those who may not know or just want a little bit of a refresher, Lupin the Third is an anime franchise, manga, everything that I guess has been going on since like the 60s. Zach, you could probably correct me on that.
I don't have that info in front of me, but I'm going to say probably correct.
Probably.
Probably correct.
Folks
Monkey
at home have
Punch
Google, right?
is the thing. He did the
Yes.
Lupins.
Yeah, the first anime series came out in 1971, so
Okay.
I know
But
that off the top of my head.
did he do? It was based on a comic, right?
Yeah, the comic by Monkey Punch, which came out before that for certain. So 60s,
Okay.
definitely
Okay.
the right track.
Yes. And it has just iterated itself in many forms of anime adaptations across the years, not to mention movies. It's a big old, like, universe to my knowledge. So would it do you think it's right to call Fujiko Mine another adaptation or like a spin-off? I've heard people drop that term, but I don't know like if we have any other opinions on that.
I guess you could call it a spin-off in the sense that it doesn't have a part number to it because...
That's true.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but did part 2 and 3 actually say parts on them? Because I know 4 and 5 definitely did.
I mean, they're referred to as part 2 and 3 nowadays. I think part 3 might have been called New Lupin the Third at the time, but I'm not 100% on that.
Okay.
I always viewed the Lupin franchise, since it has all these TV series and movies and specials and so on and so forth. I always kind of viewed it more like
So many.
James Bond franchise, you know?
Oh,
Where,
yeah.
like, there's
Okay,
eras, you know, and they're all so different
Yeah.
with the casting and how it's done and stylistically, and it's usually represented by, at least for the TV series, by the colored jacket Lupin wears majority of the time. That's why we got the green jacket era, red jacket, pink jacket, and nowadays it's blue jacket. Fujiko Mine, he wears the green jacket specifically
green
because it's
jacket.
supposed to be a sort of its own prequel, you know, how the gang gets together.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So you
Which
could
is-
even just say it as like a prequel.
Yes.
I like that.
Which also has been
Nice.
done like several times as well, but
So what does remain, what I have learned in this time, is that what does remain is the cast is always, it's usually you're going to have the same gang of like central characters amid most Lupin works, and I think that is the case here, but Fujiko Mine specifically takes a sort of centralized glance at Fujiko Mine as the protagonist, kind of more so. Yeah, just going with that, I just felt it might be good to give a little backdrop, because I remember listening to a Lupin review once and just having no clue what was going on because I
now-
wasn't introduced to it.
And now you're on the other side of the looking glass.
Oh, it's a problem. Yeah, I've done like the full deep dive now. I'm like looking up fan art and like watching everything and making weird Looney Tunes headcanons with Zach, which I think we forgot to screen cap to Craig, but I'll do that later.
Oh, Christ.
Anyway.
I'm so proud of us.
And it all started just by saying, oh man, we should watch or review The Woman Called Fujiko Mine. And then Cami over there was like, I'm gonna watch it in part 4 and get into Tumblr. And I'm like, and Zach over there in the corner was just like, I'm so proud of her. Wipes away a single tear.
Single tear.
I finally have someone
Yes.
to talk about Moemon.
It's so good. And honestly, just to give backdrop on partially why this was chosen, this show, just for kind of looking at, things that look funky, things that look well-reviewed, things that look stylistic. This show was always kind of in my periphery as something that I wanted to check out. I thought it was a movie for a long time for some reason. Go figure. But when we were deciding what to review, Craig was like, let's rein Zach in on these episodes. And Craig and Zach were already watching Eizouken, which we reviewed last week.
Yep.
And after a lot of debate and discussion,
We were on the,
I was like,
Talks
hey,
of wheat.
we were on
Talks
the,
of wheat.
we were on the fence of Spice and Wolf, but then we
yeah.
somehow wound
Yeah.
up with Lupin.
Yeah, we were talking about Spice and Wolf. Zach didn't really seem to be biting the bullet, so then I was like, well, I have been meaning to watch Fujiko Mine, and then Zach's like, that's one of my favorite shows ever. You're pulling up bias here. And so that kind of sealed the deal. So to steal our treasure, which is having Zach as a review host on one of our episodes, we decided to watch Fujiko Mine. And Zach, did I just make that up, or is this the show that you really, really like a lot, which is what I thought?
No, I really liked the show a lot. It was on Over at Save of Progress, we did our anime of the decade. This was in the top 4. I feel like
Hell yeah!
And I feel the opinions only gotten higher even since that recording and on this rewatch too. So
yes,
I think this rewatch just solidifies like this is probably my favorite Lupin thing. Period. So yeah,
Nice.
Awesome. Well, then let's go ahead and delve into story. So as we said, it's like the gang of characters. I think from, again, what I've seen, this is a very like dark, like noir sort of mystery take on the Lupin franchise, which is genuinely a bit more goofy. Would you say this is more of like a serious iteration of Lupin the Third?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
It was meant to be stylized because obviously the green jacket choice was purposeful because it's meant to kind of like Sayo Yamamoto when she took on the project wanted to kind of like do a callback to the original Green Jacket era, which at the beginning was very serious. Which got more lighthearted as it went on, like when Miyazaki took on the project after like the first 7 or 8 episodes, I believe, which became more of the closer to the family-friendly image that we all know Lupin as. But those first few episodes were more dark and serious. And the Monkey Punch manga was also more that kind of like dark, serious, raunchier type manga as well. So it was trying to kind of pull back that feeling when making the series.
Yeah, and I think they definitely did a good job. We were talking about this briefly before recording, but there's like a laundry list of content warnings you could provide for this show because it is very mature. Like, obviously, there's a lot of nudity, a lot of sexuality in this show. There's drug use, there is alcohol consumption, there is abuse of many kinds.
Yeah, trigger warning.
There's I was trying to think if there's actually like gore violence in here. I wouldn't say there's much, but it is definitely implied as well.
A lot more implied violence. It's not that violent, especially after I watched the Koike spin-off films, which he helmed himself. Those are, compared to those, this is very tamed in comparison.
Yeah.
I think the abuse stuff, though, is definitely probably the most quote-unquote violent aspect.
Violent.
While they're mentally suggested.
Yeah. I agree. So yeah, there's a lot here, and I also will say, at least for my opinion, I don't see a lot of anime that kind of tackle this sort of like dark noir atmosphere a lot. I mean, you barely see any things that are about like mystery or crimes and stealing and stuff like that. So I found the setting and sort of the tone of this show to be really unique and kind of refreshing. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I was about to say, when you just thought of it, when you said that, like, I was like, the only detective procedural sort of thing that I can think of is, like, Psychopaths. But then again, the Psychopaths is nihilistic and kind of grimdark. This is just got, like, as Zach said earlier, like, a bit of Bond flair, but with, like, it's a little pushing the boundary and the envelope a little bit on that. I know Detective Conan is also, like, the longest running detective, like, mainstay, and Lupin and Conan have crossed paths at one point or another.
They have.
Yeah. Like crossover movies and shit.
Wild.
There's 2 of them. There's a special and then a feature-length film. Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
So I like it because of its like like dark tone and like especially in the back half. Like the first half is kind of I would say it's episodic. You meet your cast, but in the back half is where I was like. That's basically it's kind of hard to stop at that point, right? Yeah, I literally just binged it, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is phenomenal! Holy shit!" Yeah, the first 7 episodes are very setting up the pieces, getting to know the cast. Every character that's not Fujiko essentially gets like eccentric episodes, and setting up the relationships, the dynamics episode. I think the school episode, honestly, I think is the first like episode you're like. Holy shit, you know? There's more at play here. This world is fucked. Man.
Yeah. Actually, that's something I'd love to get your opinions on. I feel like this show is very interesting narrative-wise in that it tackles an approach that is both episodic but also having a centric plot. Do you think that was jarring at all, or do you think they did good? I think they did pretty good. I think there was one episodic episode that I was a little bit weak to, and it was the one about...
Is it the Cuban one?
Yes, it's the Cuban one.
Where
Yeah, I agree. It's the
where
cute one.
Yeah, that was the most disjointed one because it's just like,
Yeah.
It's so sad because that's like the second Goemon episode too, but it's like he's not even like a big player into it, and it just feels so detached from everything else in the show.
The narrative or whatever. That's like what, episode 7, right?
Yeah, that's episode 7. That's one of the Daisato episodes that he wrote. So
I'm just like, hey, look, they stopped the thing. Also, Goemon did his thing, become the Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. I think, like you, Craig, I think you put it perfectly, that one just felt disjointed. Even when other episodes were episodic, you did at least have that thing of, okay, again, meeting our cast and having them interact or cross paths, which felt fun and organic. Like, you could have even used episode 7 to do something with, like, again, you could still do Goemon, but maybe, like, crossing paths with, like, Lupin or Jigen, or, hell, we could have even done something to, like, get more Zenigata in the story, like, so that one just, felt kind of like a missed opportunity, just because it was so, like, the entire plot was entirely separate from, like, the rest of the cast, even Fujiko herself, outside of something to steal.
Well, it also is interesting, too, because, like, that's the first episode, or rather, the first Lupin thing that I've like watched, and I'm like, does this confirm a timeline of where Lupin takes place in the world? Is this
don't worry about it.
I know. And much to like what Cami was saying, that episode could have been better used to be like have a pair up episode, because like episode 5 ostensibly is also just another like misadventure episode, but it has Jigen like meeting up with Lupin for the first time, and I'm like, you know what? That's cool. That's actually really cool. Yeah. Episode 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely the weakest one, in my opinion, as well. So.
Yeah, I think because what's also just really strong in this show is how all of the cast interplays. Like, that was something I was always so excited for. Mm-hmm. So I was like, ooh, who's gonna meet up today? Like, who's gonna be featured? And so. But overall, I think that outside of that, they did a really good job of letting the episodes feel fresh and episodic with sort of, whatever heist is going on, to then how that slowly creeped into, okay, we're doing a central plot. And they also, in my opinion, did a really good job as far as tying intricacies from the first episode all the way to the finale, is something I'll say.
I was telling Zach, I'm like, this show... like, it made me think to myself, man, this warrants the rewatch. Just because of how it...
it does.
It just... like, you see so much, like, Easter eggs and visual cues, and you're like, holy shit, this is... And it's only 13 episodes, holy shit, this is, like, perfect to just, like, go back and watch again to pick up on all the subtleties.
Yeah, you can notice more, like, certain shots and how some of her... She wears a lot of her... like things that clearly influenced her, Sayo Yamamoto on her sleeve in a lot of regards when she did the show. There's a lot of references to like Utena, specifically the school episode, like even certain shots like the greenhouse is right there. The school's layout's very similar. There's a shot in the first episode that just looks like the elevator sequences from Utena right there as well.
Was there a butterfly?
The use of the shadow puppetry and so on and so forth.
Was there butterflies?
Good call. Shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like,
damn.
There's a lot of like wearing a lot of those influence on your sleeves. Also, how you can notice a lot more, and this is what makes the 7 episode like even stand out more, not in a good way, is that like a lot of the episodes also contribute to the overall theme of the show in terms of like the feminist like aspects of it and how women are perceived in their relationships to one another.
Oh, yeah.
And especially because a lot of the standalone like characters that drive the plot of the standalone episodes are usually female characters, or the female characters usually at the center of the story, while that episode 7 in particular is this weird geopolitical plot line involving that's supposed to be, I guess, commentary on modern day politics and so on and so forth. Obviously a Fidel Castro-esque stand-in in the middle of the episode. And it doesn't really contribute anything. It doesn't like add to the relationships. I guess it just more shows the wider world outside, but it just
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. But yeah, I like y'all said, weaves together very well. Another point that I'd actually love to bring up before I forget it, I was talking about this show with a friend of mine who had watched it, and we talked about how it is much more of a feminist lens. And she mentioned something that I think is a really good point, is that so much anime that has a female protagonist as the main character is often centered around a narrative for coming of age. And it's really refreshing in this show to see a woman that is basically fully grown, owns her sexuality, and has her own goals in the spotlight. You know, she's not a high school girl. She's not experiencing her first love. She's not like, you know, challenged by adolescence. And I have to agree. I think that's really freaking awesome. Just to have that focus.
And to have like so much depictions of like sexual encounters and nudity, but it's not done in a very skeezy way. The only time it's ever like super skeezy is literally like in the first episode where we're seeing it through the binoculars that Lupin is looking through.
Yeah.
That's the only time it feels kind of skeezy. Everything else though is so like, it's just how nonchalant she is about it, you know.
She
it's more
owns it.
empowering than anything, you know, because she's like, it's like that. I heard it best described as like, it's like when you walk around your house naked and you just have that comfortability with it.
Yeah.
So just
that's
like,
a really good way to describe it. Yeah.
So it's like, it has that sort of feel. It doesn't ever feel skeevy when she is like in the nude or these sexual encounters and so forth. And you know, it's always, she's the one in power, you know, everyone else is the one that feels awkward around her. She's the one okay with it. So she's the one always in power in those situations.
That's the thing that I always liked about Fujiko, like even in like what I've seen of the Lupin franchise is Fujiko always had it. She always had the gusto. She always had like, she was much akin to Lupin, sans the whole like horny aspect. She was always like 3 steps ahead of everyone, and she would always just be like, oh, you're gonna try and go after the treasure? I already got that thing, bitch. And while just walking around in her like bougie apartment, like just sipping wine. And I'm like, she owns it. She's got the moxie. I like that a lot about her, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There's even a line that she said, again, just talking about sort of the ownership, the comfort with it, where a certain character is trying to take care of her, but because she's in a bad place, she gets angry and she's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you trying to accomplish by this kindness? If you want to have sex with me, just tell me. And I was like, damn, fam.
Yeah.
Like, that's very, and that also just illustrates again that she is competent enough to take care of herself. And while I do think it was a shout out because she was upset and was misreading the kindness, I love the whole thing of like, you don't have to fucking white knight me. If you want to have sex, just tell me. I was like, damn, honey.
And that's why it's like so early in the show, the Lupin Fujiko relationship is arguably one of the more comfortable relationships right from the get-go. Everyone else has like a sort of weird tension. We obviously have like, Jigen doesn't like women, and it's usually a pre-establishing, even though he clearly has a soft spot, since he tends to help most of the female characters or has some sort of connection. But he always
I could talk about fan art right now. Sorry.
He's the jealous boyfriend. That's clearly why. So that's why he...
Yes.
And Goemon has clearly puts Fujiko up on a pedestal.
Idolizes
based on
her.
their early encounters. Even like refers to her as Maria, even though after she's revealed that's not her true identity.
Yeah.
Zenigata abuses his power to get his wants. Oscar is trash, and
Oscar's a lot.
There's a lot with Oscar.
And I'll save him all for the character section of the show. But but Lupin's the one who's the most upfront about what he wants from her, and even though he treats her kind of like an object in the beginning, but the relationship is the most comfortable. Like I think of that shot. Was it episode 4? Where she's just hanging out, chilling naked in the pool, realize he's there, and she's like, oh, okay. And it just goes back to relaxing. There's like a comfortability amongst them already set go, even though they're not French, like close yet.
Yeah.
There's because he's always upfront of what he wants for the most part with her, and there's always like that sense of comfort between them.
But their dynamic, and maybe this is just me and my like knowledge of the franchise, but their dynamic has always been interesting in the fact that he wants her and sometimes treats her like an object, which is kind of bad. Well, it is really bad.
Well,
right?
I think that's more strong at the beginning when, again, it's
Mm-hmm.
spoiler reasons, but as it progresses, you can see that relationship develop, and there's like an obvious mutual respect between the two,
and
which
that's,
I think grows into, I like to argue, affection by the end of the show.
Yeah.
But,
and that kind of like can bleed into the franchise as a whole, where they've always been like trying to outpace each other in one regard, while Lupin's like, oh man, I like the thrill of the chase, basically. That's what he's always been about. Fujiko's always been about the loot.
And that's the other thing they have connections to, not to mention the mutual respect. They both are about their freedoms. It's just their freedoms come out in different ways. She just likes the freedom of going out, getting what she wants. He just likes the chase and
the
freedom of
theatricality.
the adventures, essentially. So.
Yeah, the theatricality of it all.
One is chase, one is conquest.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, so we'll dive into it fully in character. So I will say if there is one thing narratively that I do think this show stumbles on a little bit, it is the handling of Oscar's character and all of the social messages that surround him. Is all I'll really say, is I feel like they were trying to go for some additional social commentary that I don't think fully worked in the end. And especially given, like, the audience of standard Lupin, there was a lot of negative reception to his character and to his arc from people that, again, are like, I want this to be goofy and fun and look at my fun men. I think that his inclusion in the story is interesting.
Yeah.
There's also definite references, Zach, when you were mentioning references, like, Oscar's entire, like, existence and appearance reminds me so much of things like The Heart of Thomas, like, very early tragic schoolboy BL, and, like, drawn very much like Rose of Versailles, like, that more...
Oh, I can see
that
that.
more very European, big-eyed, like, womanly boys.
I can see
And
that.
I think it's done with purpose, even down to his name being Oscar. So
Oscar, yeah. And even just the handling of his narrative, which I won't go into, but, like, it's very much in tone with a lot of very early, very stereotypical, repressed BL work in manga. So
it's also the most Okada-esque character. Like, I think that character becomes a lot more fascinating when you can examine who the writer of the show is, being Mari Okada, and I feel it's like the most, like, her, all over that character.
That's a good point.
That
I thought about that.
I was telling Zach too the other day. I was like, man, it's so wild to know that this is Okada. You can definitely see the Okada-isms in the back half of the show.
You can see it in the Oscar character. You can see it in the to be vague, super vague, the backstory of a specific character.
Yep.
And you can see a lot of the Okada-isms in her storytelling, especially knowing where she comes from. Her background and so on and so forth. So.
Oh my god. Okay, sorry, I just got a revelation, but I'll save it. Y'all have seen Makuya though, right?
I have not.
No, but oh god, that is her.
All I'm saying is Makuya was inspired by, like, some past trouble that she dealt with, and there's, like, one very overt comment near the end of this show that, like, okay, anyway.
I mean, I said it before, I think, on our own podcast, Saving Progress, is that Mari Okada is one of those writers who definitely wears her emotions on her sleeve, especially in her writing, and I think it's fascinating. I don't think it always works, but I think it's always fascinating, and you kind of understand where it's coming from majority of the time with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that the collaboration of Mari Okada and Sayo Yamamoto and sort of their way of having to adapt and refresh a franchise just all really ties perfectly together in this work. I think that this is some of the best Mari Okada writing that I've seen outside of, like, Anohana. I like Toradora a lot, some other ones, but and then just Sayo Yamamoto, and everything I've seen that she touches is, like, fabulous.
Yamamoto, when she got the offer to do the Lupin Anniversary project, she wasn't very interested in the franchise all that hell. But she was interested in Fujiko, so she's like, "I'll do the project if I can do it about Fujiko." That was like
that's
ask.
so cool.
So
that is so cool.
I actually didn't even know that this was a celebration.
I think it was a 40th. I think I want to say
nice.
I think it missed it by like a year, though. I think that was the problem. Like, it was supposed to come out in 2011, and it got missed it by a couple of cores. So
listen, I mean, it has polish, so it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Let me think again. Like, we'll be very simple on this because we can dive into it in spoilers. Did we like the twist in this show?
I loved the twist.
I loved it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It fits to the themes of the show overall so well.
I was just like, wait a minute. Is this all? What is this show? What is this? How does this affect the world state and the characters? Oh man, we'll talk about it later. But wow, I was just kind of like, again, made it reemphasize the subtlety of the show, and just the rewatchability could be like expanded based on the ending.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I was saying to get earlier, I was like, this show introduced a literary trope that I often hate or think that shows can't do well, but it was perfect. I was like, this is awesome.
Nice.
And I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I agree. I think the story was really strong. What about y'all?
fucking fun. And also, like, it does this interesting thing where, like, the first half is all episodic. And to be honest, I was kind of, by episode 6, literally by episode 6, I was like, all right, is this just going to be more, is this going to be the show? Is this going to be, like, episodic, just her kind of, like, teaming up with one of the gang of Lupin, and then the formation of the Lupin gang? And then in the back half, it just floored me. So it fucking, sans Oscar, this show fucking slaps.
I love Oscar. I mean, don't get me wrong.
He's
trash boy.
He's trash boy.
Fucking disgusting trash boy.
Trash boy. But I'll just say maybe episode 7 could have been better used than to
see. There you
kind of
go.
Like explain him.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, yeah, I have complicated feelings about Oscar. I do think that he is compelling. But I think, again, that relays in that this show, it has really good writing at its core and has a good story, and it's, yeah. I think really the only narrative complaint I have is regarding Oscar's character, but even then, like, the storyline is still compelling. I think it's interesting.
It serves as an interesting parallel to Fujiko's character as well.
Yeah, yeah. That being said, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this show, which I would like to say is the characters. Yeah. Zach, you get to start us off because of your icon choice.
Oh, because
Hello?
Fujiko. We're starting with Fujiko first. I mean, where do we begin? I don't know how this. I can't remember how this works.
I guess like why you think they're a notable character, essentially.
I mean, Fujiko's the centerfold of the show, right? She never usually gets the spotlight before, and I think she's always been the fun character. And I mentioned it like earlier, the confidence she exudes throughout the show in terms of like both her sexuality, her want of freedom, her she knows what she wants, and she gets it. And I think that's the strength of the character very up to the end, even with all the I'm trying to think of it, how to say what I love about her, and specifically in this without going to spoilers, because I think a lot of the strength of the show is the back half where they start introducing her backstory and how the character by the end is not defined by her backstory, and just like that she is who she is.
Yeah, I think you could say she stays true to herself, like through and through, and it really is such a strong part of her character, and honestly what I think makes this show very powerful. Like you said, like everything about her is just really compelling, it's really endearing, and it's just really she's the strength of the show.
Yeah.
It's this show that reminds me, like, every time now I watch a Lupin-esque thing at this point, where if Fujiko's not written as well as this version, it kind of becomes super frustrating.
I only watched a couple episodes of part 4, but I am kind of like, this is a good Fujiko, but it's not like Mine Fujiko.
Yeah, it's not the best Fujiko. This is still the best Fujiko. And I'd say part 4 is not as bad as some of the other Lupin stuff that I've seen. Yeah. But this is still, like, the best. And I think it shows that the director and the writer are both female, so I think that's a big thing to take away from this, is that how they were able to, female creators are actually write a female character, which has mostly been used up to this point as a joke in the very early stuff. Like in the original manga, the Fujiko Mine name is, I don't know if anyone here knows what the Fujiko Mine name is. It's essentially a titty joke.
It's as big as Mount Fuji.
Yep. And basically in the early manga, Fujiko Mine was not a character, but a bunch. Every time Lupin came across a woman, they were just named a big-breasted woman, specifically named Fujiko Mine. So she wasn't even like a consistent character.
Wow.
For a while in the manga, and she was always like the femme fatale. And sometimes, depending on who writes her, you could. And obviously, their view on women is that she is conniving and scheming, backstabs, but I think, and usually it's maybe sometimes written with the way of like, oh, those women, can't trust them, and that's usually when it kind of goes like a type thing.
Yeah.
And there are definitely some specials and stuff that kind of exploit her sexuality more for men's enjoyment,
male gaze.
There's like in the Jigen's gravestone, has a moment where she's like in a sex club where she's put in a very exploitive situation and completely in the nude, and I was very uncomfortable and did not care for it.
Yeah,
and it just she is so good in this, it becomes very frustrating when she's not written well in other things now.
Zach, you
I
mentioned
could see that.
Zach, you mentioned the Koike films, right? Those are the spin-offs of this. Are they worth watching then?
I think they're fun, but you gotta kind of like, again, I think all Lupin, when there's a different creative team involved, you just don't assume that they are connected at all.
Okay.
They're similar via design because it's Koike who did he's the chief animator on this project and the character designs. So that's so they have that similarity of design work, but even not exactly. They're a lot more violent.
Yeah.
More grindhousey even to a degree, I feel. So it's kind of like comparing this series to the Koike films. It's like comparing what's a good female director? I think last time I used this comparison, I used Claire Denis, who's like a French female director, comparing like a Claire who works in genre. It's like comparing that Claire Denis to like Quentin Tarantino, you know?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'm so sad that Goemon's is really violent. Because
I know you're not a big violence person, and which is unfortunate because I think the Goemon is the best one out of the three. So.
I mean, maybe I can handle it. Like, I can.
How do you feel about
with...
Bone? Seeing Bone.
It's better than like eye area. Like eye area horror, I can't really do.
I mean, no one's exploding a la Psychopaths.
Maybe we have to do a get together at some point to watch it together as a group.
Yes! That'd be fun. But yes, I was gonna use that point actually just to segue, so I could talk about my favorite character.
Your son?
my boy, yes. Goemon, or as Zach informed me, like, immediately, as Moemon, because Goemon is a samurai assassin, and he is adorable, because he's just such a, like, stoic idiot. Like, and I mean that in the sweetest way. I fell in love with him after his introductory episode where he, he meets Fujiko as Maria, which obvious Sound of Music reference there was lots of fun. And kind of fell for Maria at first. And as one of you mentioned, I can't remember who, like, he still kind of has this image of putting Fujiko on a pedestal.
Yeah, that was Zach.
After he got a kiss from her, and he just said, "Did I just get a girlfriend?" And I was like, "Oh, I love an idiot.
Oh, baby
I love
boy.
one singular idiot,
baby boy."
Oh yeah, I love him so much. Zach mentioned again when we were talking about it that out of a lot of the characters, he, like, call it his naivety, but he is kind of one of the more like good intentioned characters of the main cast. Like, he really serves to just kind of like help people out in this story, and the biggest thing that he deals with is kind of an existential crisis of if he is able to tell the qualities of women, and that reflects on his swordsmanship, I guess, whatever. But he's a lot of fun, and immediately just became my favorite character. So that's what I'll say on that.
Yeah, one of the recurring things in the show that I think is interesting is all the major male characters have like a different type of relationship with Fujiko, and I think it all kind of forms different forms of sexism. Even though I'd like to, I think some are more tame than others. Like, I think his is probably arguably the most tame of the group, maybe next to Lupin. Because I think his in the thing is like he has a weird, like, he puts women on a pedestal. It's kind of like this, he's viewed her as this pure being, and then basically when he learned that she, was not exactly who she is this woman who just goes around and sleeps around, he's kind of like, his world is shook. Yeah. You know? But that probably stems from, like, that sense of naivete of the world and how it works, and clearly it was just a man who was probably built for one thing, and that was before killing people, until basically there was a change in the show where basically me and Fujiko kind of rocked his world, so to speak.
Yeah. And we could, if we're talking about what a version of sexism he is, he's just a simp. Like, we can say it. He's a simp
he clearly has like a virgin whore-esque complex, you know?
Yeah.
So just like,
Yeah. Yeah. But he, he in the end, I love him, and I do think. That
he's super cute. He's super cute in the show. Like it's like I said, it's like almost a treating with a child, almost. Because it's just like his viewpoint of the world and how it works. Sometimes is very simple. All he knows is to cut things, man.
Just to cut things, and cut things he does. He is very talented, and I do think that he, as many characters do, learns in the end and understands things. And I also found out that he looks very good in a dress. Was another thing.
He would out of the cast, that's for certain.
Much to his chagrin.
Yeah, I love him. To be fair, I love everybody in the cast, but he was just instant charm. Another character that I really like is Craig's icon this time. So Craig, why don't you tell us about the one, the only Jigen Daisuke?
Daisuke Jigen just needs a nap and a smoke.
He does.
And he just gets roped into all these fucking shenanigans, and he just needs a break. But also at the same time, he needs money, and he keeps running into Lupin, and he kind of hates it. And also, he winds up running across Fujiko a lot, and he also hates that, because he doesn't... I don't know what the... Well, okay, we kind of understand his distrust of women, right? Because you get to see kind of his origin, because he's a bodyguard / assassin.
It's just been a trait that the character's had since the beginning. Oh yeah. So that's just so that's the thing that sticks with him the most. Though I feel like it's the character trait. I feel like that's he always says it, but I don't think he always means it. I think deep down he has this anime distrust. But all the characters he's nicest to, during the one-off episodes, I think of the tattoo girl episode, he's the first one to quickly no, we got to protect this person. This is a person.
Yeah, I was crying to Zach via chat on that episode with how soft Jigen was being. I was just like, Jigen!
He's the dad of the group, toy. He's not just the jealous boyfriend, he's the dad,
He's grandpa. He's Grandpa Jigen.
Grandpa Jigen.
He's so good. I love him. He really is a big tsundere.
Yeah.
I think you could say, with women and with the people that he chooses to kind of be friends with and hang out with.
Yeah, I just like his and Lupin's dynamic. It's they're not a part of the clique or whatever, like they are in the mainline show, but they have been partners in a few episodes, and they have that dynamic where they're just oh, we gotta do this, but also, Lupin, you're running around much like my grandson, and I'm over here, and I'm just I'm winded. Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
You whippersnapper.
Grandson, boyfriend. Look.
Yeah.
He's just being soon about Lupin, and he just, the mutual bond, they try to kill each other, and it's know what? Our guns are cross paths. Now our fate is always constantly intertwined. You
sorry,
pick me up once, you save me from a car truck.
I ship something else, Zenigata, sorry.
Oh, Zenigata.
Jigen Lupin is good ship. All I'm going to say is Lupin has two hands. He can hold Fujiko's hand and Jigen's hand. That's
And I want to commend Kiyoshi Kobayashi, who's the only mainstay from since the get-go who's still playing the character, and I think I love that because that's where I get the grandpa Jigen interpretation from, just that older scruffy man who just gets I'm tired of this shit,
I love it.
I'm so tired of this shit.
I love it. And we talked a little bit about Goemon's skill with the sword, but nobody can best Jigen in a shootout. His gun work is pretty impressive, and it's on display here.
And I love by the end of the show, it's pretty much just Goemon and Jigen just constly duking out, and what they claim pretty much by the end is this battle will just go on forever. We're just
done. We're good. see you again, maybe.
Good shit. Yeah, I really like Jigen a lot. I think Jigen and Goemon are my two faves. It's just that the Goemon gets put up on a pedestal because he's a simp, and I'm a simp for simps. And as Zach said, Jigen probably smells like an ashtray.
Oh, God. Right in his beard, just right there, all the ashes.
Damn, that's dirt. That's nasty.
right. Let's talk a little bit about Lupin, who is a lot of fun. When I saw the way that Lupin looked, like with his eternal like shit-eating smirk, just on like promo art and stuff, I didn't know if I'd really like his character, but I like him a lot. I love the fact that he is cunning, but a lot of his cunning doesn't necessarily come down to big schemes, but more so how intelligently he can read people.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. I like that about him a lot.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like he just likes to chase, right? And Fujiko just likes like the conquest of it all. And Lupin always came off as he's, as you said, able to read everyone, be like a few steps ahead of everyone, but also just kind of play it off as like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, Looney Tunes, where he's just like, shit-eating grin. Then he says, "Did I do that?" And then fucking
his love of disguises and
face masks,
just dressing up like other characters. He exudes confidence.
Yeah.
Constantly, and it's very appealing. He's always willing. It's that confidence that allows him to also to constantly goof around, because he knows he's going to always have the upper hand in most situations. So he could just be the goofy, yelling jokes, making weird noises, running around like a cartoon character, his legs flailing everywhere.
I mean,
he could pop out his head like he's walking around like a zombie with headless zombie for a little while.
I mean, when your whole entire life is being chased by a Zenigata, you gotta like keep yourself entertained, right? It can't be always stressful.
And the other part, besides all these other traits, is that he is respectful of everyone around him in a way. Like, he never looks down on anyone. I think that's why he exudes all these confidence that he's always going to have the upper hand, but he never looks down on, like, his opponents or his rivals, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they're all equals to him, and they all have they can just as equally get the up on him as he believes he has on them. And I think that's what also is so appealing. He never looks down on majority of the cast when he views them as like an equal rival, even if it's down to a dirtbag cop who's chasing them around. So it's like,
and that's what makes Lupin as like him across all mediums just fun to like watch, because he doesn't do anything out of malice, or he's not a dick. The only thing that's kind of like eyebrow worthy is like his horniness for women, but.
He's very horny. So,
Speaking a little bit about horny, can we just briefly discuss the different handling of Zenigata's character in this adaptation versus others? Because what I always thought with Zenigata was, I was like, he's the like too serious cop that like is kind of clumsy, and he like bumbles around and stuff, and obviously he is forever chasing Lupin, but he is very different here, I feel like.
This is the most vastly different interpretation. I love Zenigata as a character in most interpretations. I love him in the sense of his use of the story and what it contributes to the themes of the show. But to get the best idea of what Zenigata is in most of Lupin, this is probably not the go-to one. He's kind of a dirtbag cop here. So
yeah.
He even calls himself that to like basically, what was it, to like secure like his placement in the force or whatever. He kind of uses people.
He's that cop that like abuses his power. That's his relationship with Fujiko. And so when all the characters have like this unique relationship going on with the putting her on a pedestal, Jigen just dislike of women. His is like he abuses his position as a cop over her, and like basically takes that opportunity to like manipulate her to get what he wants, which is Lupin.
Yeah.
And like he will sleep with her for favors, and even in his like, oh no, that was not part of the deal. That was just for me. And then dirty shit like, or grabs her butt just randomly, like, and it's just like doing everything to make this guy's just a big old dirtbag.
Yeah, I think his character focused episode was episode 4, and then I was like, like I always knew that like it was always just to get Lupin, but like for him to just legit like have like show a scene of him having sex with Fujiko, I was like, I didn't think that Fujiko would ever want to sleep with that guy. Or is it like all just him like asserting dominance, or is it she trying to use him?
Well, and people using each other, because obviously that Fujiko sex scene came back later on in the school episode. Yeah. So when it was used for a very specific situation.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
She's also trying to get... All the characters are constantly, at least between Zenigata, Lupin, Fujiko, always trying to get the one-up on one another. Though I think Zenigata takes the step back a little bit more this time around, and kind of because he has more to represent a dirty cop, like with the way he uses his power over Fujiko, and also kind of serving as a bad person to look up to in form of Oscar, because he is very toxic masculinity-esque too.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about it too, though, and how you said everybody uses each other. It is interesting how Fujiko kind of, in her treatment of each of the male characters, reflects their toxic masculinity. Like, you consider the fact that she calls Goemon like her boyfriend. She always is essentially being the thing that wants to be pursued by Lupin. In the way that she, like, basically messes with Jigen in certain ways. It's just interesting how not only, like, they have different perceptions and relationships with her, but she also kind of mirrors that in an interesting way, because she doesn't treat them all the same.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, though, I'm like, I don't know about her taste in men, though, because I'm like, what makes Zenigata more appealing to have sex with than, like, Lupin or Goemon? But okay.
I just think she just to get what she wants in this regard, and she just likes having sex.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's power in that, too, and people just like having sex.
That's true.
And she can't,
and
she can't let Lupin have, like, sex.
Yeah, she really can't.
What? Maybe that's the thing, right? She can have sex with Zenigata because she's using him for information. The moment she has sex with Lupin, then Lupin's won. So
yes. And their whole thing is like massive sexual and kind of, you could argue, like romantic tension. Like that's kind of their whole deal.
Yeah.
I argue more so by the end is definitely more romantic.
Definitely. Yes. Definitely. I don't think it's purely. I think you could have both, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, they love one-upping each other. They love screwing each other over, and they both love the freedom of it. And I think they love the dynamic and how playful it is, especially by the end. So just like and to go back to the comfortability between Lupin and Fujiko, there's a quote in the show, in the school episode that when Fujiko was reading the book to the class from Go.
Oh, you actually wrote this down? Good on you.
Women never show themselves in their natural form. That is to say, they are not so vain as men, who conceive themselves to always be amenable enough to just as nature to produce them. And that's why she has like she's so honest to Lupin, because he's the one who immediately like read through her and her like trying to. She tries to use her womanly wiles to like seduce him, and she read right through him, knows everything about her right from the get-go, did his research, did his homework. And that's why I think establishes early on this comfortability around each other, because she can just be herself instead of someone else or what other people want of him or who she's trying to calm wants them to be.
Yeah. She and that's the thing, we talked about it even before recording. Fujiko always wears a different outfit because she's always in disguise. She's always being someone else, but with Lupin and by association, kind of like his crew, she can kind of be herself, but with Lupin, the most truest version of herself.
Especially with Lupin, because like I said, this theme of identity is strong throughout the show, involving certain parts in the back half and her backstory, but also just like how she always takes on a different identity based on who she's trying to con or the different member of the gang she is with, and that includes Zenigata and Oscar to this extent as well. So,
all right. So I mean, I guess essentially we kind of already spoke about Oscar, and it is like, clarify this for me, but I'm pretty sure that this is the only part of Lupin where Oscar is written in. Like, he's specifically a character written in for this work, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So he plays the role of Zenigata's assistant, we could all say, per se. And again, I feel like they introduced very interesting themes with him. Unfortunately, it just wasn't handled with the most grace, I think.
He's the epitome of like toxic masculinity and self-hatred, and introducing some queer narratives with his story arc, and I think a lot of it has to do it was mostly due to his upbringing, 100%, because Zenigata was the one that raised him in the back half of his life, in his formative years, and he idolized him, and he's also very toxic masculinity about he refers to him in episode 11 as a black gem, and I think that's very fitting. It's like something he finds beauty in, but it's so dark.
But it's tarnished, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
I definitely, it's really, to me, I just wish that we could, it's cool that they wanted to have a queer representative character, but I just wish that he was fleshed
Not
out
so
more
vile.
and less purely like villainized. I feel like, and I mean, I feel like he's victimized as well, but like
Yeah.
they kind of don't give justice to his feelings in a lot of ways. They're either manipulated or seen as a negative in the writing, and I think that's kind of a bummer.
The way I viewed it is like, yeah, as you guys said, he idolizes Zenigata as the Black Gem, right?
Not just idolize, also loves. Let's get that out there.
He loves him.
loves
Flat
Zenigata.
out loves.
Romantically.
Yeah.
Not familially.
And yeah, just like episode 6, when you guys were talking about Zenigata being like the dirty cop, I was like, man, Oscar is a real dirty cop here, because holy shit, that, like, this boy does not know what, like, I don't know what he's about, and he needs an episode to just like talk about his feelings.
Well, that episode 11 is so interesting, that revealing more about him as well, because it dives into his backstory of him being an orphan. But it also shows like how Zenigata talks about in his backstory, he was really to fall into corruption of being a cop, basically be even more of a, not just a dirty cop, but a corrupt cop.
Yeah.
But it was seen as act by Oscar as a child, going after his one little tiny thing that he owns and holding on to it dear life, that inspires him.
His franc, right? His coin.
Yeah, his franc coin.
Yes. But like Oscar never has that moment, because he just looks up to this person who's already kind of like a dirty cop. And he's also, and again, the parallels with Fujiko is that Fujiko has all these positive people around her, with Jigen, Goemon, and especially Lupin, who basically allows her to realize who she is. And then Oscar doesn't have that positive thing to lift him up. She just has Zenigata is like, be a man about it. Whatever, you're a fuck up. And he has this toxic hate because he loves this man. But, and that's why he comes off the hate of not just women, but Fujiko, because it's like, he's willing to be with her, have sex with her. Why won't he have sex with me? And I hate the fact that I'm a man, because he won't accept me for who I am. And so it pent up in this self-toxic masculinity hatred, and that comes out in his relationship with Fujiko, who he often refers to as a spittoon, which is a much more friendly way to...
Oh, God. When I first heard that, I was like, ooh, you are spitting fire, little boy. Goddamn. But then, again, you read more into his character, and it's complicated, like where that comes from.
He's very jealous. But also in episode 6, I kind of read into the fact that he himself wants her, because...
No, I don't view it as that, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, because, this is maybe my misreading of it, but, like, it looked like he wanted her, but also, at the same time, maybe it's because of the fact that he was jealous that, he's a man, and Zenigata gave Fujiko attention, but not him.
So this is the aforementioned things that we warned about as a content warning type thing.
Yeah.
So this is the quote quotes abuse moments in the show, and I think that's the situation where like it's not sexual abuse, but it's might as well be like a rape scene.
It very much,
basically part of the fear and strength of like of that
power,
of rape type situation,
right?
Is how you overpower the individual,
Yeah.
and basically that's just this moment is he overpowers her, he
Yeah.
demeans her.
Yeah, it was very yikesy.
You could almost even argue, like, and we don't need to get into it hugely, but I also feel like in result of the toxic masculinity and why Oscar gets like more and more, again, as he's manipulated and pushed, like there's that whole scene where the owls are like, this is what you want and you can never get, and he's like, shut up, shut up, shut up.
Yeah.
I feel like there is a lot you could even be said about the effects of remaining closeted. I think that could also be a thing. And then you see him again enforcing the toxic masculinity, dominating himself over a woman, like in that specific scene, even if it's not really true to who he is. I think that he does, because he never, like, to anyone else, really, and again, it's only metaphored, like, in a lot of his monologues, he never really does say, like, I'm in love with Zenigata. I think that he knows it inside, but you could also argue that because of the way things are, the setting of where he is, And again, even in the end, and like what happens in episode 12 and 13, like I think that he kind of closets his own existence because it can't get him what he wants. So.
And that's why it's an interesting parallel to Fujiko, who ends up...
Yeah.
They both have characters of identity throughout the show, but he's the one who's kind of like ruined by it by the end, and she's the one who overcomes it.
That's a good read. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Lots of really like cool, compelling, like interesting stuff with Oscar. I think it falls back from not really having enough time to flesh itself out. And... ultimately being very tragic. This is, I guess,
and then like I said, it is a queer character, so it's not always... Yeah, so that's why it can sometimes leave a bad taste. But I think he is so complicated, and that's what makes him interesting. Even though I'm not sure it's always handled perfectly, but I'm not sure how you can handle it better, but I didn't write the show, so I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you, though. And also just major props to Yuki Kaji. Like, that also... Major props to Yuki Kaji, even in a way that I got mad.
In that school episode specifically?
Okay.
I got more on Oscar, but we can save that for the spoiler room. So
yeah. Other point, though, that this discussion brought up, another point for Fujiko, is she is also, I mean, she's basically, we could say she's probably like pansexual, so it's a good thing. She's 100%. And hell
she loves it. She just loves sex. It doesn't matter with who.
Yeah. Yeah, good shit.
Even if they're underage, that's oof.
Well, again, even just like what I said with how Oscar represents a lot of early like BL, that entire school episode is very much like the beginnings of like Lily, Yuri, the pure sort of fantasized school life, and then
very
you don't
class
address that.
S-esque.
Yes, class S. Thank you. Yes, that one. So. Fun stuff. All right. Do we want to dive into production, you think?
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a Craig's Credit Corner for this episode?
Well,
Craig?
I mean, at this point, we've kind of talked about the staff and crew, right? Like...
True.
Basically, to reiterate, Sayo Yamamoto's the director. She did Michiko and Hachin, Yuri and Ice. This one being the other of the three of her works that she's done. She's going to direct the Yuri
and she's been... I was going to say, she's been in the industry for a long time, too. That's a very important thing to work. She's one of Shinichiro Watanabe's proteges, worked with him on a lot of his projects, being Samurai Champloo and Space Dandy, to name a few.
Ooh, nice.
She's also going to direct the Yuri and Ice movie whenever that comes out. Write and direct that one, so.
Crossing my fingers.
Again, Mari Okada. She wrote the series composition. You know her from Anohana, Kiznaiver, Omains in Your Savage Season. I almost said Savage Garden.
That's also pretty good. Yeah.
Savage Garden.
Every time.
Cherry Cola.
Every time. Zach said earlier, character design, Takeshi Koike. That's the guy that...
Also the animation director as well.
Yes. He did the Red Line movie.
Oh, damn.
And he's done a bunch of other fucking behind-the-scenes production, right, Zach?
He had another short called Fist Planet, I believe it's called, and obviously he did his own. He's doing his own series of films right now for Lupin as well. Jigen's Gravestone, Blood Spray of Goemon, and Fujiko's Lie are the three that are currently on. And there's an implied fourth movie that's going to quote finish the story and might potentially have Zenigata in the subtitle, but that's just more theory crafting.
Music is Naruyoshi Kikuchi. What's up?
I was going to say, what's notable about him, he's one of the members of the band The Seatbelts. And
tell me about this.
Also contributed to a lot of soundtracks. And and this is his first solo thing. The other thing is that he did is Gundam Thunderbolts, which are both very jazzy soundtracks, which makes sense because he's a saxophone player. So.
Wow, okay. Damn, that all makes a lot of sense.
And that's basically all the credits I have. You know, we already said it before. Monkey Punch did the original comic, and this is vastly different than any other of the mainline parts because different staff, different people. It can't be stated enough how, amazing the Koike character and art direction is. I fucking love it. Mm-hmm. The scratchy, the shading is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And the very lean, it's very reminiscent, but not just Green Jacket era, but also those early Monkey Punch artwork. And it's very lean, tall, thin,
yes, long, gangly. Yeah,
yes, they have very long arms and legs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love the heavy shading on all the characters as well.
Mm-hmm. It's so stylized. And it, again, because the genre is so refreshing and can also lean into being heavily stylized, like it just fits perfectly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not going to find other anime that look like this, and that's something that I really love, you know, outside of the other Koike films. But yeah.
Which I arguably don't even look like this to extent. Like I feel like I describe the Koike films like a fusion of this and maybe Lupin Part 4, where it's like, it doesn't have the heavy shading, it's not as much muted colors.
It's not as sharp.
But it has, it's not as long and gangly, but it's still reminiscent to it, but not as, so.
Yeah. I mean, this to me is just like, it looked like I was watching like a painting. It was like a cinematic painting half the time, and I adored that. It was so good. This soundtrack is one that I like want to go out and buy a record player for, buy this on vinyl, and just like play it in my living room.
Yeah.
Well, it's so good and funky and jazzy, and I just live. It's so good. Soundtrack is insane.
It's funny. Just real quick, Zach. It's funny because during this, I was trying to pick up on different cues and different themes. Obviously, you can tell Goemon has a theme, right?
Yes.
Does Jigen and Lupin have a theme? Because everything sounds like smooth and jazzy and like music that you just like to throw on in the background, kind of like some lo-fi shit. Goemon, obviously, you could tell whenever he's on a scene because of like, I'm spacing on the type of instrument it is, but it's very distinguishable.
Koto, maybe, yeah.
Very like a Japanese-esque instrument.
Yeah.
It comes into play. One of my favorite tracks is every time there's a psychedelic sequence and you get that distorted sound comes into play.
Yes!
And it goes like that. It kind of reminds me of Yuri Arashi. We know when the flower bloom parts happens too. Because like do-do-do-do-do, and then it gets all distorted sounding.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. I mean, that, I don't like that track, but that just shows you how effective it is. Like, it's very disturbing. The sound mixing and a lot of that, that specific track just make me feel things that the plot wants me to feel. So
you're just not supposed to feel great, and then during those scenes, and the soundtrack helps in that. And that's why I think it's so interesting and stands out in that way.
I also I like the I think it's in the school episode specifically, maybe a few other places. You have like the woman singing like the da ba da ba da thing, and that was like lots of fun. And I also do like that, again, you have themes for characters like Goemon's, but even that has like little nuances and different versions. Like when we're just seeing Goemon and it's just like 3 dun 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 dun, and then when like he gets to fighting, it sounds straight out of like Samurai Champloo. Like it's this sort of blend of like a more funky hip hop, but we're still using that instrument. Like those little nuances are so good, and just I love it. The soundtrack was so good.
It's also to note that Shinichiro Watanabe was the music producer on this as well. So
oh, really?
That Samurai Champloo-esque influence. Yeah. Which he also did the music for Michiko and Hachin as well. So
nice. Very cool. Opening and ending I also really like. I love how the opening is so non-traditional in many ways. The fact that it is
all black and white.
Spoken word. It's like spoken verse with an instrumental score under it. Like, how cool is that?
Yes, and it sets up like the themes and the feel of the show very up from the get-go when you're paying attention to... Yes. And the voice actress is very specific, but that's a spoiler, so I will not mention who it is but in the show, but...
Oh, I'm theory crafting now. Oh my god. Okay, anyway.
Wait, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it in spoilers. I'm going to ask.
I'll point out in the spoiler corner.
Because I watched this in dub, like a good...
so you won't have that like reveal too, because it's the Japanese and the dub still, right?
Yeah, it was definitely Michelle Ruff.
Michelle Ruff voiced it over.
So wait, Michelle Ruff does the intro?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like she dubbed over it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very different from the...
Yeah, that's... damn.
That's very different from who does it in the Japanese, yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, and then spoilers aside, I also do really love the ending for both the song and the visuals.
Going back to that jazz.
Oh, that smooth sax that starts that song is just so good. It's like liquid butter. It's so good. The shots in it are very are just very evocative shots. Like, and I, from episode 1, was like trying to guess or like build a context about it, and then that just got more and more skewed the further I watched.
Were you trying to piece it together by like saying it's just like, oh, it's all Fujiko? Like, where is she in context to like the show?
A little bit, yeah. The first episode, I was like, okay, so she eternally likes to steal because she left a marriage where she was neglected. Like, that's literally what I thought the first time I saw it. And then later it was like, oh, wait, but maybe this is like how she grew up, and maybe this is like multiple people she's been with. Wait, whatever. And then like by the end, now I'm just even more fucking confused. So
well, yeah, but that's spoiler corner. But it does a good job of saying I think it's purposefully supposed to make you think about that stuff, Cami.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like, no, it's so cool, and there's such great shots. I absolutely love the shot where she is naked and she's sitting on the, like, backside of the chair, just, like, looking. That whole one is so, like, so feminine, but also so powerful and so sorrowful. Like, I love it so much. They're all really good. Good shit. Craig, I would actually love to know if there were any standout performances for you in the dub, because I recognized a lot of the Japanese actors, but I don't know the
Okay,
dub
so
ones.
I'm weird, and I'll just completely attribute this to I'm lazy. I watched this mostly in dub, much to Zach's chagrin. I like both audio tracks, don't get me wrong, but funny enough, and I was talking to Zach actually about this while I was watching the show. Sonny Strait definitely captures the Tony Oliver isms of Lupin, the like high pit of like the high octave range, but also being goofy.
Wow, fudgy cakes.
Yeah, kind of, right? It definitely evokes that. The only off performance, air quotes, I can see is Jigen's voiced by Chris Sabat, and I'm like, okay, it's just Chris Sabat being Chris Sabat. I mean, it works. Richard Epcar is actually fucking Zenigata, which traditionally in most other Lupin productions he's Jigen, and Goemon is Mike McFarland, which honestly I think is a better Goemon than like Slang. But outside our main cast and Michelle Ruff as Fujiko, Michelle Ruff.
Who voices Oscar?
Josh Grell or Greel.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
That
stresses me out, because do you know who else he voices? He voices my wonderful beloved husband of fucking psychopaths. So now I'm just
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
don't mind me.
Oh yeah.
I'm off on a tangent.
Outside that, fucking Kent Williams is it plays a role, but that's kind of spoilers.
Is it Alameda?
Okay.
No, not Alameda. An Alwell, which I was like, oh,
okay.
I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. But as I said before, I like the Japanese dub as well. As Zach said, the only old guard is Jigen, which pays tribute to the old man Jigen.
I'd love
in the sub, Kiyoshi Kobayashi's great.
I would love to know your thoughts then, Zach, because you've seen the older stuff on Miyuki Sawashiro's Fujiko Mine.
I love her as Fujiko. She's fantastic. I love her.
Yes.
She exudes that confidence, and I love how she can she changes the pitch of her performance depending on who she's talking to, which adds to that whole layer of her, how she changes her identity based on who she's around.
Yeah.
Like, she could get high-pitched and cutesy and seductive sounding when she's talking to, like, the person she's going to con, but then her voice drops down a couple octaves when she's, like, relaxed, and then when she's dead serious, like when she's in that tattoo episode, it's frighteningly deeper and dark, and like a woman definitely who's willing to hunt down.
See, this is the thing. This is the thing where I'm
phenomenal.
like, when I go back and rewatch this, I want to watch it in sub, because I'm like, I want to see this, because Michelle Ruff, while you know she's got it, I don't know it, like, and she does the whole like cutesy to like lower range. I want to see Miyuki, her range, and Sawashiro. Yeah, I want to see how she pulls it off.
I think it's
probably one of my favorite roles.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yes. Yeah, like if I needed any more of an excuse to like love her / have a crush on her now. It's just cemented because she's so good as Fujiko. So
I love the Japanese cast, and I love they're the
Yeah.
main cast of the whole series going forward. Goemon has this weird classic samurai type voice, always
Okay.
stern, always serious, even though he says the goofiest shit sometimes.
I need to look it up, but I feel like he is the same guy who voices what the fuck is his name? Fox from Persona 5, who is like a
Yusuke?
Yeah,
no, that's Tomokazu Sugita, I believe, who voices Yusuke
Oh, okay.
in Persona 5, and this is Daisuke Namikawa. So
This is Daisuke Namikawa? Are you fucking kidding me?
yeah, this is Daisuke Namikawa. So.
That's Waver.
This
What
is
the fuck?
yeah. I was waiting for the moment that came to your
Wow.
just came to you. I'm glad it was caught here
Wow.
live on the podcast.
Her brain
so.
broke.
Oh my actual god! Oh my god! I'm
goes
gonna
so
go
deep.
back and clip the scene where he says "You're my girlfriend," and I'm just gonna make it my ringtone and my wake up alarm. Oh my actual god! I
Oh,
think my
it's
fiance
funny.
just yelled at me to stop yelling, so I will stop. All right, yeah. Any other production notes, boys?
No?
To keep going on the voices, I love Kenichi Kurita's voice as Lupin. He's been voicing the character for even longer than everyone else outside of Kobayashi.
Ooh.
He took over the role way before the other mainstays who took over, because Goemon, Fujiko, and Zenigata were all took over their roles in one special, Blood of the Mermaid, Mermaid's Crystal, something like that, something with a mermaid. It was before
There's a mermaid?
like a couple. Sure, why not? I don't know, never seen it, but a little bit before this Fujiko. But he's been voicing the role a little bit longer in the early 2000s. He was brought on as a voice impressionist because he had a similar sounding voice to the original Lupin.
Oh, that makes sense.
I just love how he could back and forth between zany, cartoony, but he could do that super cool, serious noir type voice so well.
Yeah, this is gonna sound really weird, but I feel like from his performance, like the entire time I watched it, I could hear the smirk that Lupin had like on his face, you know, just from the intonation and the way he delivered, and that is good talent right there.
Exudes confidence constantly, whether it's goofy or serious. I love it. And of course, I love Koichi Yamadera, who voices Zenigata. That's fucking Spikes from Cowboy Bebop. And
No way.
Yeah, and and he's playing deep voice, gruff grandpa, Papa Zenigata. Well, in this case, Dirty Cop Zenigata.
Dirty grandpa, no.
Oh no. Oh no. There's only one grandpa. That's Jigen. We're gonna leave it that way.
He's
Pure
Papa Zenny.
Papa?
In other
I don't, Papa, no.
No, because that makes me think of another thing that I'm not even gonna say.
Banana fish.
So he's great as well. The visuals in the show are some of my favorites as well. I know we just talked about with the design, work and design, but the use of, and this is, I think before this podcast, I don't think I said it while we were recording, but Utena, I think, is a big influence in a lot of this stuff. And a lot of the shots and settings, and the use of visual metaphor is very prevalent throughout the show between the butterflies and the owls.
Fuck owls, man.
And they just have so many multiple meanings throughout scene to scene. I like the imagery of owls is set up right from the get-go too, right? Like there's just like simple things like the door will have an owl on it. There's just like an owl statue in the background. You don't notice it's there, but it's constantly this idea of you're being watched. Always.
Mm-hmm.
And that
I love the. Oh, go ahead.
No, and I was just gonna say, and that's why I think this warrants a rewatch, because you'll be able to pick up on the Easter eggs of like the bigger picture. It's crazy, just in the way that like dream sequences or flashbacks rather are framed. Fucking mind palace trippy bullshit. It's insane.
Yeah.
Episode 10, I feel, is going to be a big deter for a lot of people because that's the
Yeah.
Ghost Town episode. And then that's the one where I feel like, I feel like by that point, a lot of people might just stick it out and finish the show, but that I can see as the biggest deterrent episode because that's the biggest, like, what the fuck's going on episode.
Yeah. Like, a lot of it, honestly, like, went over my head, but it was in a way that it was, like, still good because I was still really interested, but I was also like, what the fuck? Whew, like, flew right over my head.
And that was also another Dai Sato written episode. He wrote 3 episodes, the 2 Doraemon ones and the Ghost Town one. So I don't know, maybe that's just the way it's written.
Yeah.
And,
right,
it's definitely the most heavy in terms of like we're gonna always set up the
world.
end game here, but also set up in this very weird, surreal, basically exposition drop.
I think you could say that he gets a bit like rambly in his writing and like loses sight of things, and that definitely plays into both of those. And it, to a degree, I think it serves a little better in episode 10 because it is just like so trippy and meant to be a bit confusing, and you're not really sure
what is real and what's fiction in this. And like, I just had to actually look it up to make sure I was on the right episode number, and I'm like, oh right, this episode was a mindfuck.
So many butterflies.
Photos, a lot of photos,
man.
Drugs.
A lot of drugs. A lot of
I was
photos.
like, damn, man, if I was high, this would be the most scary thing.
Oh
no! like if I saw it for the first time, because there's so much of what's an illusion, what's not. If I was high, I'd be like losing my mind. Would not be a good time. So warning: watch episode 10 sober, just for your own sanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, production, like it's honestly ridiculous because I feel like usually when I go through reviews, I go through segments and I'm like, okay, this one was maybe a little weaker, this was the strongest, but I feel like in most cases in this show, in story and characters and production, I feel like they're just all very standout. They're very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that maybe production is the thing that I have the least complaints with, because Oscar is not an aspect of production. So therefore production is the strongest because it's just all around super good.
Well,
I don't know.
It's interesting too because like I could probably, and maybe it goes back to the thing you were talking about before we hit record, is the main Lupin, half of the main Lupin fan base doesn't really like it. Maybe because of the writing, maybe because of the art style. When I initially saw this, I was like, man, this art style is distinct. Will I be able to like this? And then you just will go into it and you're like, yes, the world matches the color palette. It matches the dour, like the drab color palette. It's dark, it's gritty, but also
very mute.
Yeah, very mute, but also Lupin's there, and Lupin can bring levity to some of these situations. So I'm like, okay, at least it's not all like a mindfuck, and it's all not like depressing as hell. So
that's a good point, Craig. I never did hear people that were like really not feeling this show. They never complained about the art. Yeah. So that's a very good point. Yeah. It was more just the more unique takes of the other things. And so yeah, that's really interesting.
And there's a lot of standout people that came into to animate on the show. I found out right before we started recording.
Oh, right.
It was like Misaki Yuasa.
What?
Misaki Yuasa, Hiroyuki Imaishi, and
God.
What was the other? Tachikawa, Yuzuru Tachikawa, all did like little key animations.
Yeah.
Imaishi and Yuasa did on episode 12. Yuasa did the boob oh god, that's a spoiler, but there's a thing with a bunch of people who are naked and showing their boobs, and there's a lot of fighting, and that was Yuasa bit. There's a part where Lupin runs down a roller coaster that was done by Imaishi. I don't know what the one Tachikawa did. He did it in the Oscar episode. Tachikawa being the director of Death Parade.
Ooh, Mob.
And Mob Psycho 100. So
yeah, I remember you linking the Sakuga blog.
Yes.
When Cami was prepping notes, and I'm like, those are good scenes. So good on them for helping out.
I really want to talk about spoilers. So are y'all ready to rate this sucker?
Mm-hmm.
Cool beans. All right. Because I made Zach go first in characters. Craig, give me your rating.
Okay, cool. Short and sweet to the point. I fucking love the show.
Yes.
Like at first I was like, it's your Lupin fare. The first half is just like, I like this. It's Fujiko focused, but also she's hanging out with the guys. But then by the time you hit episode 6, you're like, this show is a bit more than meets the eye. It's darker. It's a little bit more fucked up. And just seeing this, I even texted Zach, I'm like, is this based on, did Monkey Punch actually like have any say or like do an origin of this caliber for Fujiko or the gang meeting up, and he's like, nah. I'm like, then good on you, Mario Okada. You fucking like, this is like, honestly, next to Anohana, I'd say this is like, and Nagiasu, I think this is like Okada's like one of her best works. So if you want an entry way into Lupin, but albeit it does have trigger warning. Also, there's bees in it, so cast be warned of that. Go watch The Woman Called Fujiko Mine, because we're all players in the tale that is known as A Woman Called Fujiko Mine.
I have the stupidest grin on my face. That was really good, Craig. Nicely done.
Thank you.
All right, Zach, go ahead, hit us up.
I mean, of course I love it. I love it. So good. This rewatch, if only, just reinforces my love for it and how interesting it is. And I think it's so... I love this. It oozes style. It's so interesting thematically. I think even where it fumbles, I think where it's interesting, like talking about Oscar, and I think Oscar is a fumble for the most part. But I think he's still so interesting to peel back the layers and examine. And it just, like, I think the show... it's challenging. I think it's a fun, challenging show. Like, it could be, it's was a friendly reminder that the show can both be a cool, fun crime caper, but also can be interesting and thematically and challenging. I think that's probably why a lot of Lupin people didn't take to it right away, because Lupin's always goofy and fun and lighthearted and family friendly. This is definitely not in a lot of those ways. It challenges the viewer. It makes you perceive certain notions. It's very feminist friendly. It just, like, it does so much cool, interesting things. And this is the reason why the show even eventually got re-energized. Lupin was very stale for a long while. Lupin was just pumping out like a special every year. And then this show came out, and now we got part 4 and 5 and several other Koike films and so on and so forth coming out because of this show doing pretty well. It has led to Yamamoto eventually getting to Yuri on Ice and so on and so forth. So this is probably everyone bring their A. It has a lot of people bring their game, like Yamamoto, Okada, Koike, and so on and so forth. Brought in so many different interesting animators and Watanabe, and it's just like everyone's firing off on all cylinders on this one. So it's just one of the best. I love it.
What a show.
Hell yeah.
Best Lupin. With a bullet.
Nice.
All right, if I have one complaint for this show, it's just the fact that this was my introduction to Lupin the Third, because everything else is just going to pale in comparison, because, of course, like everyone else, I loved this show. This was such a, like, I complain jokingly that it was my introduction, but, like, wow, this is a phenomenal way to just get me incredibly invested in something that's been a long franchise. Everything that I think is lovable about the original Lupin, while it gets twisted on and gets challenging and becomes differently toned, is on full display here. The cast is immediately lovable, and they make up such a bulk of Lupin in general. The fact that it's wrapped in this delicious, like, again, challenging, well-written, with social messages package. Yes, please. This show is just such a gift. Like, it's so enjoyable from head to toe. I'd been kind of in a standstill of not watching a lot of anime since the pandemic started, and everything I saw just felt very monotonous, felt very samey. This, like, just re-energized me entirely and reminded me of how fun it is to just watch a phenomenal anime. And it makes use of just everything, like amazing characters, amazing soundtrack, incredible animation, excellent writing. And I mean, I don't have much else to say that hasn't already been said by my two co-hosts. This show is phenomenal, definitely on my at least top 20 anime of all time, if not somewhere in my top 10. We'll reevaluate that later. Yeah. Definitely go ahead and give this a watch, and now I'm in pseudo-Lupin hell, and I'm gonna enjoy watching part 4 and part 5, and maybe some of the Koike films later down the line. And so, for our recommendations, I have 2, because I think that, depending on the audience member, if you are someone that wants to see more Lupin, I'm going to recommend Lupin the Third Part 4, because I don't know, I'm garbage, and I didn't want to go all the way back to the beginning. And I think I got into it because they told me about a specific Goemon episode. But it's fun. It's fun. It's more modern. It's stylized, and it is
very beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, that opening too. Woo, so good.
Oh, woo.
Yeah.
Feeling the vapors from that opening alone.
Yeah. So good, and another fun way to enjoy some of the stuff that is on display from Fujiko Mine. If you want more of the phenomenal directing work and something a little bit more socially progressive, you can go check out Yuri on Ice, also directed by Sayo Yamamoto. Great show, and there is a movie coming out along the way. So yeah, hopefully in between there you'll find something that you might want to check out. And before we go into our spoiler room, as some of you may leave us, I'm going to go ahead and drop you some social links. If you want to get in touch with our podcast, you can do so at twitter.com/AniChatBox or send us an email at AniChatMail@gmail.com. If you want to listen to us on another platform than the one you're using now, check us out at iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, Spotify, or YouTube. Thank the man Craig for getting us everywhere on all those platforms.
Let me know if there's a platform that we need to get on.
Yeah, just send us an email, shout out on Twitter, something like that. And if you do want to help support the work that we do, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/AniChatBox. And major shout outs to our patrons, Sarah, CorpsyAnn, Carol, Suki, Paul, TroubleClef, and John. Seriously, you help us keep the lights on, and you keep me singing and rapping, and you have us talking about Animal Crossing. Thank you for all that you do. Let us know if there's more we can do. And if you really enjoyed hearing Zach talk and want more of Craig's voice, you can check them out on their podcast, Save Our Progress, which we like to call a slice of life podcast. Find them at soundcloud.com/saveourprogress. I was on an upcoming episode. I cannot claim
confirm
what
nor
was it,
deny.
Zach? I can't
confirm.
You can neither confirm nor deny.
I cannot
that you're
confirm
going to be on an
nor
upcoming episode.
deny. It was a Ghibli film. But you should check them out for their anime movie nights, their random takes. They talk a lot about this filler arc of quarantine COVID-19. It's good stuff.
It's a horrible season. I think the writers really it just needs to be canceled. Fuck, man.
Yeah, cancel it. No 6 seasons in a movie for this one.
Good reference. Good reference. That's also a show that went downhill.
Yeah, unfortunately. So yeah, go ahead and give them a listen. Thank you so much for tuning in for episode 152. We are going to go get comfy in our chairs in our spoiler room. So if you don't want to be spoiled, and honestly, please don't spoil yourself, go watch this show. So if you have seen it, you want to hear what we have to say, stay tuned. All right. I think that's enough warning time. Does anyone have a point for spoilers?
Okay, let me ask this then. Who is the narration in the opening? Because it was Michelle Ruff in the English.
Yeah.
Is it the
Minerva's Owl, aka the mom?
Okay, so
that's exactly what
mom.
Yeah,
oh my
it's the
God.
mom who does the narration at the beginning of the opening.
So in the credit, I'd have to double back and look at this then, because while obviously in the dub I didn't recognize it's Michelle Ruff, but the wiki doesn't show who everyone is. It shows Owlman, which is the mom, as Kent Williams.
Minerva's Owl.
Yeah, so I'm like, well, obviously it's a voice changer, but they didn't credit the mom. So I'm like, huh.
Because it's like two lines or something? She says very few things.
Basically, she's like...
Yeah, she doesn't even get revealed as a female to the very end. And I think it's so funny because it shows how because the show is always constantly laying how men relate to female constantly throughout the show, and how this character feels the only way she can have power is disguising herself as a man. And I think that's an interesting thematically to the overall show in terms of men's and their relationship with women and power and so on and so forth.
Well, it's also even more interesting in the fact that she basically let her daughter basically mindfuck victims. Basically,
okay. This is we're going to the Okada-isms right here. This is the other character I was referring to. This is very Okada.
I was just more saying it's
the Aisha.
It's interesting in the fact that the mom basically let the bad shit happen to her daughter, but then said, "Give me back my." I can't remember exactly. Did she tell Fujiko and Lupin to give her daughter back or something like that, or?
No, end the story. End the story.
Okay. So, yeah, it's interesting the fact that the mom didn't do anything and then basically helped the daughter mindfuck a bunch of victims.
That's deep diving into the Okada, right? Because Okada definitely came, when she released that biography, definitely grew up in a household of mental abuse. Mostly from her mother. That's exactly
what I was, alluding to in the, when you mentioned that and I, freaked out earlier. It was because, and that whole little speech that Fujiko has about, you have no right to, blah, blah, blah. What did you do? I was like, oh, that's probably personal, just considering everything, the tenuous relationship that she had with her mother. So
in Aisha, how she keeps going with the identity of keeping Alameda alive, or at least the identity, because again, it's that situation
her
of
abuser,
people
right?
will listen to a man, not a woman, and so this got to pretend this guy is alive. But all she knows, even after he's long and gone, she spent all her life being abused. So all she knows is to add trauma.
The cycle of abuse
So she just uses her
continues, right?
Yeah, so she continues to circle abuse when they're kidnapping children and implementing her backstory, her memories into all these girls, and even doing it to Fujiko, so she can see what her alternate life could have been.
It's to a point where when this has all been explained, I'm like, holy shit, is Fujiko Mine a concept? Is Fujiko Mine this girl all along? Was she just...
I mean, no.
Oh, well, obviously, it's revealed that Fujiko Mine was literally just a maid that wanted to, loot the castle. And she's like, I was stealing and, sleeping with men to get what I want before you. I am the original. I am me. And I'm like, that is good. I like that. Own it.
A really interesting thing that I observed from browsing Mal forums on the last episode is that people... at first were and I think it might have been a translation error, but they were like, wow, it was so cruel of Fujiko at the end to be mocking this dying girl. And I was like, I didn't see it like that at all.
No, I don't think it's, because I think it's a fusion of kindness, but also not mockery, but another word. It is painful because you're forced to watch this person at the end, but it's also you're finally seeing the outside for yourself. You're not seeing it through a screen.
And you also see it as a sort of redemption in many ways, but the most overtly by the fact that when she passes away, she gets her youth back. You see again that
glimmer in her eyes.
She kind of gets that youth that she lost in that moment, because she has that peace.
Yeah, she can see with her own eyes. She can, when she sees Fujiko and basically having fun, she's like, this is a beautiful sight to see, and you see the glimmer in her eyes as she dies.
As she dies.
It doesn't sound like a translation error to me. I think that's more because the show, and I think the entire show does very well. The show does, outside that heavy exposition episode 10. This show does very well of showing and not telling.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I think that's a fine example of that.
Yeah, well, people mentioned as translation error. I think because considering this was 2012 and the way that people were talking about where subs are, I think they were unreliable, unofficial subs.
Okay.
But also...
yeah, this is very early era of the streaming.
Yeah. But also, she does say, I think I have to go back and rewatch it, but she does say something about, this is the real world and you can't do anything about that. But I don't feel like that's mockery. I feel like her saying you can't do anything is kind of emphasizing the fact, again, it's look, you lived your trauma and your only response to it was to try to inflict this trauma on the world as it was the absolute. It was the only thing. And Fujiko is showing her this side of freedom, this existence of a woman that is free and liberated. And no matter what, Aisha's been trying to spend her life controlling that and imparting it. She can't here.
Yeah.
She can't. No matter what, this freedom exists.
Yeah.
And
Aisha's trapped in the past.
You can't control every facet of your life.
Yep.
Yeah. Or of the world. And
And part of the reason why she's hunting down Fujiko Mine in the back half is because she's quote unquote stepping out of line. She's wanting a freedom that she wanted to experience, but also now how it becomes anger and jealousy of how you have all my same memories, but it doesn't affect you. You move forward. You live your best life. You're being you, and I hate that because I can't be that.
Yeah. So even just in saying, like, you can't do anything, it's not even mocking. It's really like, look, your trauma does not have to be you. It doesn't control the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought it was a very strong line when I reflected on it. Where's Oscar by the end? What do we think happened to Oscar?
He ran.
I think he just ran off into the night. A broken mental mess by then.
There's episode 11 basically was like,
yeah,
okay, you're gonna blow up the bridge, and then you're gonna have your black gem. Your Zenigata will be yours. You'll kill Fujiko. And then he just comes back as like in that sequence with all the other females. I'm like, oh baby boy, you're so broken. You're so broken.
And he's one of the Fujikos at the very end.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of Fujikos and people who are forced to look like Fujiko at the very end, which I think is a fun play on the original backstory of Fujiko, where there was multiple Fujikos in the original Monkey Punch manga.
Oh, and, wild.
And I think it's meant to be a kind of like a fun callbacky play on that.
That's good. I like that.
And how he assimilates into what he hates in the very end, which is a fitting of this story of how he hates his male body and eventually trying to become like a woman by the end of it, even if it's by force against him.
Well, yeah, because Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm going to change.
Just that he was manipulated. Like they took his basically like sexual repression and like that sort of feeling, and they were like, well, we can use that because you'll basically become our pawn and try to become Fujiko, which was bad. Anyway, yes.
Yes, I was gonna say though there are some interesting reads. Writer Vry on Twitter, also known as Vry Kaiser, she's a contributor over at Anime Feminist. She has her own blog over at vrykaiser.com. She has a whole like little blog. I may have to link it to you after this. It's about Fujiko, about the character Oscar and the silence queer narrative, and she goes deep dives into Oscar. And one of the things she's also partially theory crafting based on nothing too explicit in the show, but based on imagery and how he ends up by the ant in the Fujiko room and one of the things she points out is like, why does he have that interesting tattoo on his arm and so on and so forth. And she compares and contrasts how in Fujiko and her implanted memory, she has those scars, those weird jagged scars on her feet that implanted that's on Aisha's. And she's comparing and contrasting is Oscar a failed Fujiko experiment potentially? Because he was a child and was found out he's an orphan. We don't know much of his backstory beyond that. Was he kidnapped beforehand? Did he escape? Did he do that? But this is like a little article deep diving into her theory of that.
That's interesting.
Very fun.
Or their theory of that, rather.
Very fun.
It goes by they, I believe.
Yeah. No, but yeah, big shout outs to Anime Feminist. They do amazing writing.
I definitely read some supplemental materials by a lot of the writers leading up to it. Rye being one of them, Caitlin Moore, who's another contributor there. She also has a couple pieces on Fujiko Mine on her own personal blog, heroinproblem.com, I believe. Heroin with the E. So.
Awesome.
Nice.
Can I share with y'all a stupid shower thought epiphany I had earlier today?
Sure.
So the fact that if you're just reading into like Oscar's feelings for Zenigata and the fact that he wanted to be Fujiko because he wanted to be chased, I think that in the end he does kind of end up getting his wishes, because at the end where we leave Zenigata, at least from what we can see by the scene, he's no longer chasing after Fujiko. He's trying to chase Oscar. He's trying to find him and get him back, and that in a degree, in a very simplistic way, is something that Oscar wanted.
Yeah, because by that point, wasn't Zenigata taking out the Lupin case, and then like a police officer comments by saying, "Oh, he's taking off the case. That sucks for him. His lieutenant is also MIA," and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna go get lunch or something like that." So,
well, yeah, even just in the last like scene that we actually see of Zenigata, and he's kind of like, "Oscar, come back," and Oscar leaves. So he got what he wanted to a degree in some way, just like very subtly. Yeah,
even though he's arguably mind broken.
Yeah, he's
the end of it
it's very damaged. Very damaged.
Yeah. Like I said, the recurring parallel arcs of their characters going through identity crisis throughout their story, but in the end, Oscar ends up broken by the end of it, rather than Fujiko overcomes it by the end. So it's like,
Fujiko, man.
It creates an interesting parallel narrative, but like we said in the main episode, it's some of the handlings of the queer narratives, his obsession, how his treatment, and I know his whole point is he is just a straight up misogynist. He's the embodiment of toxic masculinity because he idolizes a man who also exudes toxic masculinity. So all he had to look up to was this, and probably maybe his traumatic past, whether he is a subject of the experimentation like Rai believes, or at least growing up as an orphan alone and having nothing to his name. He clearly grew up a very traumatizing childhood of some shape or form.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when I talked about a literary reference that I don't usually like the last episode kind of throws in a big old like Deus Ex Machina, but it's so good. The more that I thought about it as I got towards the end, I was just very much like, I didn't want this past that is built up to be Fujiko's for a multitude of reasons, because it kind of betrays the original lore of the character, and at least the author of the character, Monkey Punch, and the choices of how she's depicted. I also think that if that was her past, that betrays a lot of the feminist messaging that the show has had. You could unfortunately read a lot of like the ways that not only Lupin but also Goemon and Zenigata and people helped her to reach her goal. You could read it a little bit more as, again, like being saved or being white knighted. And I am just glad that doesn't end up necessarily being the case. Yeah. And again, it's very strong to say that, no, she just exists as this, that she, she pursues her own goals. She's not pursuing revenge against a man and, like, again, having her life and her goals centered around a man. That's not the case at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Lupin basically told, like, exposition dumped in that episode, but again, what I think is so poignant and so cool is even when she's confronted by Aisha and is like, no, I was this way before you even mind-fucked me. And it just, again, just the like, she imbues freedom is so cool. I like it. And she owns it. And she's, like, definitely a femme fatale that can just, doesn't even really, even if Lupin wasn't there.
She just likes sex. She likes jewels. She doesn't need a reason why. She doesn't need a traumatic backstory to explain why she likes jewels and sex. She's not broken.
To explain or justify in that way as well.
No, she just likes it.
Yeah.
She's just an asshole who loves jewels and having sex. She doesn't need trauma to make her interesting or to explain why.
Exactly. Exactly. And you could even say that, again, like, in the other characters trying to build and search for this reason, again, just disproves all of, like, the traces of sexism, like, within the narrative. And it's good stuff, and I love it. I wish they gave Aisha a different name, because I have a high school friend named Aisha, and I'm like, I don't like this.
And it comes back down to Lupin as, again, the person who saw, because he didn't, like, do the reveal himself. In the end, it's just like, look, do it, girl. Stand up. Be you. You have to overcome it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's very good.
He's like her cheer. It's like her cheer squad, you know? He's there on the sidelines like, you can do it, girl.
Just stay calm. You've got this. And then just...
Not even that. Just like, you got it. Look, you're a badass bitch. Don't tell anyone what to tell you to do. You can do it yourself. I don't need to do it.
He says something like... He says something like, show me the strength that I know you have that I've seen before. And I'm just like, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Good stuff. Very good stuff. And I love, like, I had this big dumb smile on my face for the last scene where he's like Mine Fujiko, or should I say my Fujiko, and his whole fucking car like dives to reach her, and then
Fujiko-chan,
and it crashes, and then she like kisses the like screw from the car and drives off, and I'm just like, oh, it's so good. I love it.
It's that scene that shows finally their relationship hits the point where it is in the main show, and arguably that's when it becomes a little bit more, the affection is real between them and not just a continue, like there's always going to be that rivalry and that trying to one up each other, but now it becomes more affectionate because she never shows that much affection towards him. There's like a casualness to it, This is the first time where she's like playing with him in like in a fun, affectionate way by kissing the screw that fucks him over. It's the first time he calls her Fujiko-chan, which is his nickname in the show and all the shows.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
And then Jigen in the background fighting Goemon.
I love that. It's just like he picks him up at the side of the road as a hitchhiker, and just I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
I love their relationship too.
When it's the question, they're like, "Wait, you just left Jigen there?" And then he's like, "Yeah," and it shows them, and they're just like, "All right, well, good job." And then like the feathers flying off, that was cute, and it was good.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs.
Actually, just quick cliff note on the whole thing about like the first time he calls her Fujiko-chan and stuff, like considering that they trace it back and tell us all about I'm forgetting what, like basically Almeida's like involvement with
what is it
Fräulein Euler.
Fräulein Euler.
Which is
that involves
Stop. Basically a cult, and I'm like, it all comes back to episode 1. Jesus.
An evil pharmaceutical company was behind it
Dizzy
all along.
So I mean, like, you could even read into that, like, initial thing in the first episode when he writes, like, I will steal Fujiko Mine on her leg and stuff. Like, you could read into and question if that was, again, part of the setup by Fräulein Euler, but at the end, that's really his first, like, no, I'm going to pursue you because of, like, the strength of their relationship, which is really cool and makes it extra sweet, and I love it. I'm getting nonsensical, partially from my lack of food and partially from how much I love this show. So
double whammy.
Do we have any other things to quick fire, or are we good to go?
I'm good. The episode 8 through 13. What a ride. I liked it.
Yeah.
No, it shows great.
Yeah.
I think we covered Oscar, the ending bits, the twists, so on and so forth, the comparisons of Okada to that Aisha's backstory, and so on and so forth, in the relationship to her mom. Yeah, we covered all the major things I really wanted to hit on.
All right. That sounds good to me then. Yeah, you are my girlfriend. Anyway, it's good shit. All right.
Girlfriend.
Now she needs to
boyfriend song.
I love it.
Just calls.
I love it.
That's cute too, because that sets up the green jacket, because when the Goemons first introduce, they're in a quote quote relationship as boyfriend girlfriend in when Goemon first appears in Green Jacket.
Oh my god.
So it's like a cute kind of like
callback.
Inside callback, yeah.
I love it. Okay.
Nice.
All right. Well, yeah, to any of you that stuck with us through spoilers and honestly even just stuck with me screaming half this episode, thank you so much for joining us. Again, this has been episode 152 of the AniChatBox. We hope that you are taking care of yourself, staying safe, doing okay, and we will catch you in the next one, so stay tuned.
Boy.
Lupin the Third!
Lupin the Third!
I hardly believe when I heard the news today.
Oh my god.
Tell me how am I supposed to live
without you?
What is happening?
Knowing I've been loving you so long.
I'm sure that did warm up the wavelength, so I guess thanks.
Cami is very flabbergasted by our singing.
I'm just gonna sit here and drink my water for a sec. It's good.
It's good.
Just get us all set.
Yeah.
Okay.